Standardized testing plays a significant role in the education career of every student. The SAT is the biggest of the standardized tests. The SAT can be the difference between whether or not a student goes to college. Now, is there a correlation between SAT scores and family income? Every student knows the stress that goes behind standardized testing, whether it's a simple quiz or a test as significant as the SAT. For some, the stress can become overbearing. It's only natural to wonder if a certain subgroup of students have an advantage over everyone else. It's only natural to wonder if variables that are outside of your control are going to affect the rest of your life. Now, we'll be going over 4 factors that play a role in SAT testing and family income. And those 4 factors are SAT results, SAT costs, family educational background, and finally, the role of high schools. Now let's move on to factor number 1, SAT results. The book Millennials by the New Strategist created 2 subgroups. Subgroup 1, which involves students that come from a family income of less than $20,000, and subgroup number 2 that includes students that come from a family income of more than $20,000. It was recorded that subgroup number 1 averaged a 461 on the SAT's reading section. It was also recorded that subgroup number 2 averaged a 589 on the reading section of the SAT. Now that's over a 100-point differential. That's very significant, and it tells you that there is indeed a correlation between family income and SAT scores. Now that you know about the results of the SAT based off of income, let's move on to SAT costing. Now, a lot of people don't realize this, but the SAT costs $45 to take each time. And much like we did in factor number 1, let's create 2 subgroups. This time, subgroup number 1 will include students that come from a family that brings home more than $60,000 a year. And subgroup number 2 will include students that come from families that bring home less than $40,000 a year. It was reported by Oxford University that students that come from subgroup number 1, which is the higher income subgroup, are 1.5% times more likely to retake the SAT than subgroup number 2. Now, this plays a huge role because if you can take the SAT as many times as you want, that puts you at a higher chance of getting a higher score. And if richer students are retaking it more times than lower income students, that puts them at a distinct advantage. That's something that we shouldn't discount. Now that you know the first 2 factors, let's move on to factor number 3, family educational history. Now, family educational history is very important because if you come from a family that has 2 college graduates in it, naming your parents, they're going to put pressure on you from the moment that you're born that you need to do well in SAT and you need to go to college because that's what they did. If you don't have that luxury and you don't have any parents that went to college, there's not going to be, well, I shouldn't say there's not going to be, it's not likely there's going to be pressure on you to go to do well in SAT, to go to college, because that's not what they did. And as we noted before, people that come from higher income families are more likely to do well on SAT. And people that come from higher income families probably have some high school or college education to go along with that. So those are 2 things you have to consider. Now let's move on to the final factor in the role high schools play. People don't really consider any type of influence high schools have over SAT testing Because we all kind of live in this bubble that every high school is the same, and that's not true. There's higher income high schools, there's middle class high schools, there's lower income high schools. Lower income high schools often are underfunded. They don't really offer the same type of expansive tutoring services that the other high schools provide, and that puts their students at a distinct disadvantage. And according to CNBC, now this is a very interesting fact to note. According to CNBC, lower income high schools are less likely to give their own students extra time on SAT. That's a very odd factoid, and that definitely can play a role in SAT scores. Now, in conclusion, there are 3 distinct factors. 4 if you include SAT results, but there are mainly 3 distinct factors that relate to SAT scoring and family income. SAT costs, family educational history, and the role of high schools. There is a correlation between SAT testing, SAT scores, and family income. People that come from more than $20,000 a year families are going to average over 100 points better on SAT than their counterparts. So, with knowing all of this, it's going to help you emphasize with people that come from a different background or culture than you, and it's also going to allow you to emphasize with people who don't do as well on SAT as maybe you did. Thank you for your time.